Welcome, today's story is full of drama. Like and subscribe to stay updated. Let's get started.
Her demeanor was the first thing that tipped me off. You see, our daughter Chloe had come home in tears, leaning on Emma and me for comfort. She had been unfaithful to her husband, Ethan, and now she wanted me, her father, to step in and persuade Ethan to forgive her and give their marriage another chance. Chloe reasoned that nearly 85% of men had been unfaithful to their wives at some point, and Ethan probably wasn't an exception. After all, he was charming and good-looking, constantly surrounded by women who admired him and vied for his attention. "Have you ever actually caught him doing anything unfaithful?" I asked. "He is attractive and women like to be around him, but that doesn't mean he's cheated." "What on earth made you decide to betray him?" "It wasn't intentional," Chloe admitted. "We were at that party 2 weeks ago, and Ethan had to leave early to deal with an issue at the office. I had a bit more to drink than I should have, and when he said he wasn't coming back, he told me to get a ride home with one of my friends. The friend that took me home was Aaron Blake. He kept telling me how much he adored me, and when we got to my driveway, he started kissing me. I guess I let him because I was a little drunk. I didn't know Ethan was already home. The next thing I knew, Ethan flung the car door open and saw me with my dress half off, sitting on Aaron's lap, and..." She stopped there. Chloe was crying and sobbing as she told us this. "Chloe, if you think I'm going to side with you or interfere, I'm not. I thought your mother and I taught you better than to cheat on your husband. Emma and I have been married for 25 years. If she did that to me, I'd toss her out. It would rip me apart, but I'd feel I had to, just to keep my self-respect. Daddy, you must have been tempted in the last 25 years, haven't you?" "Sure, several times, tempted, that is. But there has to be mutual respect between loved ones. Do you think your mother has ever gone out and been unfaithful to me?" There was total silence. I hadn't looked at Emma while I was berating Chloe. The silence brought me around, and I turned to face my wife. She was pale and looking at the floor. "Emma, look at me." She couldn't. I got up and left the room. I went into the kitchen. Chloe was still crying when she came to get her coat. "Chloe, did you know your mother has been unfaithful to me?" Now Chloe wouldn't look at me, so I could only conclude she probably did know. Like mother, like daughter. "Get out of here. I know just how Ethan feels, and I hope he kicks you out for good." I went back into the living room, and this time Emma looked at me. "I'm sorry, Mark. Can you forgive me? I think you're sorry I found out. Evidently, Chloe knows what you've done. Can you imagine how I feel about that?" Every time she came over, she probably looked at me with pity. "Well, I know about it now, so all we have to figure out is what happens next. Can't we go on just like we have been? I still love you. I can't. There are too many who know about it, Chloe, probably Ethan, your lover, and all those he most likely bragged to about sleeping with you. No, Emma, no. I've never denied you anything. I've given you all the love and attention you wanted. I've raised your children, kept your house, attended your functions, and been by your side whenever you needed me. How about trust, honor, and commitment? Did I have those too? I thought I did, but apparently I haven't. I guess the only thing for me to do is leave. You'd better get an attorney to represent you. I'll try to be as amicable as possible through all of this. If you could read my mind right now, it would make you afraid of me." I walked upstairs and started packing a suitcase. I had traveled quite a lot, so it only took me a few minutes to decide what to take. When I came back down, Emma was still sitting where I had left her. "Don't you want me to tell you about it? How it happened?" she asked. "No, I don't. You must have been willing because I know you don't drink, so you can't even use the same excuse Chloe did. I'll have my lawyer call you so you can tell him who you have retained." "God, Emma, I admit I have been happy with you, but I don't see where I could ever be again. You'd better tell Ryan. Chloe most likely will, but he'd better hear it from you. Boy, is he going to be hit hard when he finds out both his sister and his mother have been screwing around." I left before Emma could say anything more. I sat in a motel room thinking back over my life. I suppose I had an easy time of living up until now. My folks were upper middle class, so I had been able to get a good education. People always said I was too serious, but they knew where they stood with me. Not that I was overly righteous, but I didn't feel that way about this situation with Emma. You had to have some rules to live by, though. Marriage, to me, was a solemn and serious affair, and when I took the vows, I knew I would keep them. I expected everyone else to as well. What made Emma think she didn't have to? She was a grade school teacher. Christ, she taught kids to adhere to rules every day. If they didn't, they were punished. This guy she didn't deny having an affair with must be something. Did I want to know about him? That was a definite no. I might find out he had a bigger tool, gave her better climaxes, or treated her better than I did. I don't see how he could, though. All the time we were together, I thought of Emma first in everything, including sex. My thoughts turned back to Emma. She was an attractive woman, 48 years old, keeping herself toned and groomed. But then I kept myself that way too. Neither one of us would have any trouble finding another companion. Wait, she already had. It was only me that would be looking. As I sat there thinking about her, I decided I didn't feel the same about her as I did just 2 hours ago. It was a big loss, and it left a hole in my heart, but I hoped that would close after a while. The love I had for her would last for a long time. It just wasn't as strong as it used to be. Ryan and Chloe, our kids, I'm sure, would pressure me to stay married to their mother. Maybe not, though. Chloe at least knew of her mother's affair. Maybe she thought Emma was traveling down a better road, away from me instead of with me. Well, I would deal with this the same way I did everything else, wait and see what developed, then choose the best alternative. Emma must have noticed the sharp edge in my voice because she quickly added, "We took precautions. It did not happen. Ryan and Chloe are yours. You have to admit, I have reason to doubt you right now," I said. "I don't even know why I'm talking to you. I've got a cheater for a wife, and you want me to forgive you and forget about what you've done." I turned to Ryan. "I hope you are my son. I don't know what I would do if you weren't." "What about me, Daddy? I'm your kid too." "I know I am," Chloe interjected. "Well, why don't you act like it, then?" "Chloe, you know I love you, but what you've done to Ethan breaks my heart." "I'm sorry, Daddy. Please talk to Ethan and make him forgive me. I couldn't do to him what Mom has done to you. I promise I'll be true to him forever." "Okay, Pumpkin, I'll talk to him. You two kids go along. I want to talk to your mother. I'll see that she gets home." I got a hug from Chloe and a handshake from Ryan. Emma sat very still on the bed, watching as they left. When I saw their car leave the parking area, I turned to my wife. "They're great kids. I hope Chloe does what she says she will. 2 cheaters in the same family would be too much, even if the kids aren't mine. I love them." "Mark, stop calling me a cheater," Emma snapped. 3 nights out of a year doesn't make me that. What am I supposed to call you? Maybe a loving wife that only cheats a little? How would that be? You might as well take me home if all you're going to do is call me names. We've always been able to talk without being nasty to each other. Okay, I'll try. You have to know how I feel about this and realize how much you've hurt me. I didn't realize before, but I'm beginning to. I was crushed when Chloe came and told me what she had done. She and Ryan knew about me. I thought her knowing about me would keep her from doing the same thing. How long have they known? 2 years ago, they came to the convention to surprise me. They found a man in my room, and I couldn't cover up what we had been doing. I made them promise to never tell you. As far as they know, I haven't had him in my room since. What should I know about this man? If you've been cheating with him for 26 years, he must be really something. Emma's face flushed, and she avoided my gaze. Mark, I was 22 at the time. Teachers flirt just the same as any other group. He and I were flirting, and it got out of hand. It happened, and we had sex. This occurred the last night of the convention that year. I came home, and you and I had wild sex. I found out shortly after that I was pregnant with Chloe. The next year, I didn't go to the convention because Chloe was a baby. The year after that, I spent all 3 nights with him. She stopped, her voice breaking. "I honestly don't know who the father is, but if you could see him, you'd know both kids are yours. I didn't go to the convention the year Ryan was born. I have been with him every year since." "Why? What's the attraction?" "It isn't the actual being with him. It's the excitement as convention time gets closer. I'm going to be doing something nobody would approve of. Nobody would expect it of me either. You didn't. The kids didn't. They think I stopped after they caught me. Christ, last year, I almost went wild when I thought you might come busting the door down because maybe they squealed on me to you," Emma said, her voice trembling. I looked at this woman I thought I knew so well. She just told me that not only didn't I have all of her, but she was thinking about this lover of hers for a good part of the year, too. "With me out of the picture, maybe it'll be 10 times more exciting," I said coldly. "Let's see, you've been in bed with him, 75 times in the last 20 or more years. You want me to forget all of that? Come on, get your coat. I'll take you home. This is the end of us, isn't it? You're a good man, Mark. I'm truly sorry I haven't lived up to your expectations. You wouldn't know what it's like unless you've been in the same situation. I'm sorry you've missed that too. It makes you feel so much more alive. Emma's words stung, but I tried to keep my composure. I looked at her with disgust, but it didn't seem to bother her. Maybe she felt justified. Maybe she didn't think of herself as a cheater. I could think of other words, but they wouldn't change anything. I dropped her off at the house we had shared for years and drove away. I couldn't stay there. Too many memories. Too much hurt. I went back to the motel and tried to sleep, but my mind wouldn't let me. The next morning, I called Ethan, Chloe's husband. We met at a local coffee shop. Ethan looked haggard but was composed enough to hear me out. I can't advise you what to do, Ethan, I began. Once trust is gone in a marriage, you might never get it back. I told Chloe the same thing. She swears she'll be faithful from now on. If you think you can forgive her, maybe you'll make it work. But don't feel pressured. You deserve respect, and I'm sorry my daughter broke your trust. Ethan nodded, his expression unreadable. We talked a little longer before parting ways. I wished him the best but knew it wasn't my place to fix their marriage. That was on Chloe. Weeks later, Jack, Ethan, and I sat in a bar one evening. Ethan had finally allowed Chloe back into his life, but their relationship was tentative. He admitted it would take a long time to rebuild what was broken. Over drinks, I confided in Jack and Ethan about Emma's infidelity. Jack was stunned, having never suspected Emma of such behavior. He voiced his sympathy but didn't press for details. A few months later, Chloe announced she was pregnant, and despite everything, it brought a sense of hope to the family. Ryan and Chloe became more involved in my life, perhaps to reassure themselves that I was still their father, both biologically and emotionally. Meanwhile, Emma and I finalized the divorce. We split everything down the middle, including the house. Neither of us wanted to stay there. The memories were too heavy. I called Mike, my attorney, on Tuesday morning and said I wanted a divorce from Emma. He questioned me extensively, as he was not only my lawyer but a friend of both of us. I told him I didn't have any proof of her infidelity, but that wasn't the point. He said that whoever Emma chose for a lawyer would advise her to fight the divorce. I replied, "There's no way Emma can get my love back, no matter how hard she fights for it. I'll be fair in any settlement and split everything down the middle. That's the main goal besides the paperwork." My assistant took calls from Mike, Ryan, Chloe, and Emma in the afternoon. I directed her to tell them to call my motel in the evening if they wanted to talk to me. Sure enough, Ryan, Chloe, and Emma were waiting for me when I reached my motel. "Dad, can we talk in your room? Mom knows she wronged you, but she's hoping you can get past this. We can talk, but she's going to be disappointed." We went up to my room on the second floor. "Did Ethan take you back, Chloe?" I asked. I begged him to, she admitted, tears in her eyes. "He said I could come back, but I'd have to stay in the guest room until he makes up his mind. He won't sleep with me either." "Well, good luck. If you beg hard enough and really intend to remain faithful, he might." Emma, who had been listening intently, seemed given a glimmer of hope by what I said to our daughter. I dashed her hopes quickly. "You made a mistake. Maybe Ethan can live with that." "I can't. I'm just not made that way. Mark, if you come home and I sleep in the spare room, can't we resolve this?" Emma pleaded. "I haven't made up my mind yet. First, who did you have an affair with? You don't know him, so you don't need to know his name. Where did you meet him?" "At a teacher's convention." "When?" 26 years ago. "How many times have you been in his bed?" "I'm not going to answer that. Haven't I told you enough? I admit I had sex with him. What more can I say?" I sat there, looking at my wife. Then the thought struck me. There was a teacher's convention every year and Emma went to them all. Was that why she wouldn't answer? I had to know. "So, you've had sex every year for the last 26 years with him at the convention. Is that right?" Her head came up at that. "Not every year, if you must know. I missed two. It looks like I'm going to miss this year too." She looked down, her voice trembling. "I'm so ashamed of all of this. I didn't realize what it looked like until it was brought out into the open." "Emma, come on. You were never hurt by this, were you? Remember the great sex we had when you got home from the convention?" Both Ryan and Chloe were conceived during those sessions. I wanted to hurt her, suspecting that great sex with me was her remembering the time with her lover only days before, or that they were conceived a few days earlier with someone else. A few months later, life moved forward, though the scars from the betrayal lingered. Chloe and Ethan seemed to find a rhythm again, and her pregnancy brought a sense of renewal to their relationship. I was cautiously optimistic for them. Ryan, too, had started dating a wonderful young woman, and they were already talking about their future together. I welcomed the distractions, as they helped me focus on something other than my fractured marriage. Emma and I had minimal contact after the divorce, though she remained cordial at family gatherings. Despite the amicable facade, there was an unspoken tension whenever we were in the same room. She seemed to have moved on, and I tried to do the same. The unexpected encounter one afternoon, while running errands, I found myself drawn to a small diner on the edge of town. It was quiet, with just a few patrons scattered across the booths. I ordered a coffee and was halfway through when a familiar voice broke my thoughts. "Mark!" I turned to see Emma standing near the door, her face a mixture of surprise and hesitation. She looked happy, but different, as though a weight had been lifted from her. "Emma," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, motioning to the seat across from me. "Sure." She sat down, smoothing her skirt. "I wasn't expecting to see you here." "Same," I replied. "How have you been?" She hesitated, then smiled. "Good. Actually really good. I wanted to tell you, I got married. Gary and I tied the knot last week." I blinked, processing her words. A swirl of emotions passed through me. Surprise, anger, relief, but I kept my expression calm. "Congratulations." "Thank you," she said softly. "I know this might be hard to hear, but I wanted you to know. I didn't want you to find out from someone else." "It's fine," I said, though it wasn't entirely true. "If it makes you happy, then I'm happy for you." Her smile faltered. "You don't have to pretend, Mark. I know I hurt you deeply, and I'll never forgive myself for that. But I hope you can find happiness, too. You deserve it." A new chapter not long after my encounter with Emma, my life took another unexpected turn. Kathy, the woman whose kids I had helped, became an increasingly significant part of my life. Her warmth and optimism were a stark contrast to the pain of my past. Over time, my visits to the cabin became more frequent, and our bond grew stronger. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, she turned to me with a smile. "Mark, you've done so much for me and my kids. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to," I said. "You and your family have given me something I didn't think I'd have again. A sense of purpose." She reached for my hand, her eyes soft. "Do you ever think about starting over? About love?" I hesitated but then nodded. "I do. More than I thought I would." We sat in comfortable silence, the unspoken feelings between us growing clearer. In that moment, I realized I was finally ready to let go of the past and embrace whatever the future held. Epilogue: Emma's marriage to Gary seemed to work for her, and I hoped it brought her the peace she sought. Chloe and Ethan welcomed a healthy baby girl, and their marriage continued to heal. Ryan proposed to his girlfriend, and their wedding was set for the following spring. As for Kathy and me, our relationship blossomed. What started as a friendship turned into something deeper, something real. We both carried scars from our pasts, but together, we found a way to heal. 1 year after my divorce, Kathy and I stood on the porch of the cabin, hand in hand, watching the sunrise. The pain of betrayal no longer defined me. I had a new family, a new love, and a new sense of hope. Life had come full circle. A growing bond. Kathy and I spent more time together as the months went by. Her kids, Brian and Wendy, had started to thrive in their new environment. Brian, now working part-time at a local restaurant, often experimented with new recipes, treating all of us to delicious meals. Wendy had become a sought-after babysitter in the neighborhood, her natural warmth and responsibility winning over both parents and children alike. As for Kathy, she slowly regained her independence. Her leg healed well, and she began taking on part-time work at a local community center, helping with programs for single parents. It was clear she found joy in helping others, much like I did when I stepped in to help her family. A proposal: one crisp autumn evening, we hosted a small dinner at the cabin for Chloe, Ethan, Ryan, and his fiancée, Jessica. After the meal, we all sat around the fire pit, laughing and sharing stories. Kathy was in her element, her laughter infectious as she engaged everyone with her warmth and humor. As the evening wound down, Kathy and I found ourselves alone on the porch. She leaned against the railing, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the lanterns. "You've made my life so much better, Mark," she said, her voice tinged with emotion. "I don't know how I would have managed without you." "You've made my life better too," I replied. "More than you know." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Kathy's eyes widened as I opened it to reveal a simple yet elegant ring. "Kathy, I didn't just want to help you and your kids. I wanted to build a life with you. You've shown me that love can be pure and honest. Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded, unable to speak at first. Finally, she whispered, "Yes, Mark. 1,000 times, yes." Blended families. Our wedding was a modest affair, held at the cabin with just family and close friends. Chloe and Ryan stood by my side, while Brian and Wendy were proud to support their mother. It felt like the beginning of something new, a second chance at happiness for both Kathy and me. The adjustment to blending our families wasn't without challenges, but the love and respect we all shared made it work. Kathy and I made it a point to involve the kids in every decision, ensuring they felt valued and included. Emma's new life. Meanwhile, Emma seemed to find fulfillment in her new marriage to Gary. Occasionally, I'd hear from Chloe or Ryan about their mother's activities, trips she and Gary took, or milestones they celebrated. It wasn't easy at first to hear about her happiness, but over time, I felt nothing but relief that she had moved on and that we could both start anew. Moving forward, Kathy and I built a life centered on family, love, and community. We hosted regular gatherings at the cabin, bringing together not just our kids but extended family and friends. The laughter and warmth that filled the space were a testament to how far we'd come. Brian enrolled in culinary school, his dream of becoming a chef now within reach. Wendy pursued her passion for working with children, volunteering at local schools and youth programs. Watching them thrive was one of the greatest joys of my life. As for me, I found a renewed sense of purpose, not just in my work but in my relationships. Kathy and I had something rare and beautiful, a love born from mutual respect and shared experiences. It was a love that healed old wounds and gave us both hope for the future. A final reflection. Looking back, I realized how much life had taught me about resilience and forgiveness. The betrayal that once defined my life no longer held power over me. I had found peace, not by forgetting the past, but by embracing the possibilities of the future. Kathy and I often sat on the porch of the cabin, watching the sunset and talking about the life we'd built together. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And in those quiet moments, surrounded by love and laughter, I knew I had finally found my way home. A surprise visit one bright spring morning, as Kathy and I prepared for a family gathering at the cabin. An unexpected knock came at the door. When I opened it, Emma stood there, looking both nervous and determined. "Mark," she began, "I know this is unexpected, but I wanted to talk to you. Do you have a moment?" Kathy glanced over from the kitchen, her eyes meeting mine. I nodded at her, silently signaling that everything was fine. "Sure, Emma. Come in," I said, stepping aside. Emma hesitated, her eyes scanning the familiar cabin. "This place hasn't changed much," she said softly. "I always loved it here." "Neither have I," I replied. "What brings you by?" She took a deep breath, her gaze steady. "I came to thank you for everything, for the years we shared, for raising two amazing kids, and even for the way you handled things after everything fell apart." I sat down across from her, intrigued. "I appreciate that, Emma. It means a lot." "I've had time to reflect," she continued. "Gary's a good man, but being with him has made me realize just how much I took for granted when I was with you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted to let you know that I see things differently now." I nodded, choosing my words carefully. "Emma, I forgave you a long time ago, not for your sake but for mine. Carrying anger or resentment only hurts the one holding it. I'm glad you're happy with Gary, and I hope you found what you were looking for." A flicker of relief crossed her face. "Thank you, Mark. I hope you and Kathy are happy too. You deserve it." "We are," I said simply. Emma stayed for a little while longer, reminiscing about old times and catching up on the lives of our children. When she left, I felt an unexpected sense of closure. It was as if a chapter of my life had truly ended, leaving room for the new one I was building with Kathy. Family milestones. The years passed, marked by weddings, births, and countless family gatherings at the cabin. Chloe and Ethan welcomed their second child, a boy they named after my father, Samuel. Ryan and Jessica married in a beautiful ceremony, and soon after, they announced they were expecting their first child. Kathy and I found immense joy in being grandparents. Brian, now a successful sous chef at a high-end restaurant, often treated the family to gourmet meals during gatherings. Wendy, after earning her degree in child psychology, became a counselor at a local school. Both of Kathy's kids had embraced the opportunities they were given, and their success felt like a shared victory. A legacy of love. One evening, as Kathy and I sat on the porch watching the sunset, she reached for my hand. "Mark," she said softly, "do you ever think about how far we've come?" "All the time," I replied. "When I first met you and the kids, I couldn't have imagined this. But now, I can't imagine life any other way." She smiled, leaning her head against my shoulder. "You saved us, you know. You didn't have to, but you did." "I didn't just save you," I said, my voice full of emotion. "You saved me, too." We sat there in silence, the warmth of our shared love enveloping us. In the distance, the laughter of our family echoed through the trees, a reminder of the life we had built together. The cabin, once a refuge from pain, had become a symbol of hope, love, and second chances. Kathy and I had created a legacy, one that would endure long after we were gone. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I held Kathy close, grateful for every moment that had brought us to this point. Life hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Together, we had found our way home. A cabin full of life. The cabin became a cornerstone for our family, a place where milestones were celebrated, stories were shared, and bonds were strengthened. Over time, it became a tradition to gather there every summer. Kathy and I would prepare the space, ensuring everything was just right for the influx of children, grandchildren, and extended family. One summer, Brian arrived with exciting news. "I've been offered an executive chef position," he said, his voice brimming with pride. "It's at a boutique hotel in New Haven. They want me to run the entire kitchen." "That's incredible, Brian," Kathy exclaimed, pulling him into a hug. "You've worked so hard for this." We all celebrated his achievement with a feast he prepared, his way of sharing his joy with us. Watching him succeed felt like witnessing a dream come true, not just for him but for Kathy as well. She had raised her kids with such love and care, even through the hardest times, and now they were thriving. Wendy's journey. Wendy, too, was making her mark. She had started her own nonprofit organization, offering free counseling services to children from low-income families. Her passion for helping others was evident in everything she did. One evening, as we sat on the porch, Wendy approached me with a hesitant smile. "David," she began, "I've been thinking about what you said years ago, that you saw potential in me. I just wanted to say thank you. You believed in me when things were at their worst, and that made all the difference." "Wendy," I replied, my voice thick with emotion, "you didn't need me to believe in you. You've always had that strength within you. I'm just glad I could be here to see you realize it." She hugged me tightly, and I felt an overwhelming sense of pride. Watching her grow into a confident, compassionate woman was one of the greatest joys of my life. A legacy to pass on. As the years went by, Kathy and I began to think about the future of the cabin. It had become more than just a home. It was a symbol of our family's resilience and love. We decided to set up a trust to ensure it would remain in the family for generations to come. One evening, we gathered everyone together and shared our plan. "This cabin has been a refuge for all of us," I began. "It's where we've celebrated, healed, and grown together. Kathy and I want to make sure it stays that way. We've set up a trust to keep it in the family. It's our gift to all of you." The room was filled with gratitude and tears. Chloe spoke up, her voice full of emotion. "Dad, this place means so much to all of us. Thank you for giving us a place to always call home." A final reflection. As Kathy and I entered our golden years, we found joy in the simplest things. Quiet mornings on the porch, evenings surrounded by family, and the knowledge that our love had created something lasting. The pain of the past had long since faded, replaced by the warmth of a life well lived. One afternoon, while Kathy and I sat by the fire, she reached for my hand. "Mark," she said softly, "do you ever think about what's next? About the legacy we're leaving?" "All the time," I replied. "But I'm not worried. We've done our part. The kids will carry on what we've started. And no matter what happens, This family will always have a foundation of love and strength. She smiled, her eyes glistening. I couldn't have done any of this without you. And I couldn't have done it without you, I said, squeezing her hand. We've built something beautiful, Kathy. Together. As the fire crackled and the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Life had been full of challenges, but it had also been full of love. And in the end, that's what mattered most. A new generation years passed, and the cabin became a hub for the next generation. Chloe's daughter, Ellie, and son, Sam, loved spending summers at the cabin, exploring the woods, swimming in the nearby lake, and hearing stories from their grandparents. Ryan and Jessica's children, twins Clara and Max, were just as enthusiastic. They called the cabin their magic place, where anything seemed possible. One summer evening, Ellie and Clara were sitting on the porch swing, watching the fireflies. Grandpa, Ellie asked, why do you and Grandma love this place so much? I leaned back in my chair, smiling. This cabin has been through a lot with our family. It's where we've laughed, cried, and learned to be there for each other. It's not just a place, it's a part of us. Clara's eyes sparkled with curiosity. Will it always be here for us? As long as you love it and take care of it, it will always be here, I said, my heart full as I saw the wonder in their young faces. A surprise announcement. One autumn, Kathy and I hosted a family dinner to celebrate Brian's promotion to head chef at a prestigious restaurant. As we gathered around the long wooden table, Brian stood, raising his glass. I have more news, he said, grinning. Alina and I are expecting our first child. The room erupted in cheers. Kathy's face lit up, tears streaming down her cheeks. Brian, that's wonderful. Later that evening, as the fire crackled in the hearth, Kathy whispered to me, can you believe it? A grandchild from Brian. It feels like life has come full circle. It does, I said, holding her hand. We're so lucky to see the family grow. A health scare time, however, had its way of reminding us of its presence. One winter, Kathy fell ill and was hospitalized for several weeks. The family rallied around her, taking turns visiting and ensuring she knew how loved she was. One night, as I sat by her bedside, she reached for my hand. Mark, if anything happens to me, promise me you'll keep the family together. Promise me the cabin will always be a place for them. Nothing's going to happen to you, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But I promise, Kathy. Always. She smiled weakly. You've always kept your promises. Thankfully, Kathy's health improved, and she returned home. The scare reminded all of us how precious our time together was, and we cherished every moment even more. Passing the torch as Kathy and I entered our late 70s, we began to delegate more responsibilities to the younger generation. Chloe and Ryan became co-stewards of the cabin, ensuring it remained a gathering place for the entire family. Brian and Wendy, now busy with their own families and careers, made it a point to visit often, bringing their children to experience the magic of the place. One evening, Kathy and I sat by the fire, watching as the grandkids played a board game. You know, Kathy said, her voice soft, we've done well, haven't we? I nodded, wrapping my arm around her. We have. This family is strong, and it'll stay that way long after we're gone. A final farewell years later, after Kathy passed peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by family, I felt the weight of her absence deeply. But I also felt her presence in everything we had built together, in the laughter of our grandchildren, the love shared among our children, and the enduring warmth of the cabin. I spent my final years watching the family thrive, grateful for the life I had lived. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves turned shades of gold and crimson, I sat on the porch, my heart full of peace. When I passed, I knew the family would carry on the legacy. The cabin would remain a sanctuary, a testament to love, resilience, and second chances. Epilogue. The legacy lives on. Decades later, Ellie, now a mother herself, stood on the same porch where her grandparents once sat. Her children ran through the yard, their laughter echoing through the trees. She turned to her brother, Sam, and smiled. Grandpa was right, she said. This place isn't just a cabin, it's home. Sam nodded. And it always will be. The cabin, weathered but steadfast, stood as a beacon of love and family. A legacy that would endure for generations to come. A new chapter begins. Ellie and Sam took on the stewardship of the cabin with pride, ensuring it remained a place where family gathered, stories were told, and love flourished. The cabin was more than just a physical space. It was the heart of the family, imbued with the spirit of Mark and Kathy. Every summer, the family held a reunion at the cabin. Relatives from near and far would arrive, filling the space with laughter, music, and the smells of delicious food. Ellie often stood in the kitchen, preparing her grandfather's favorite recipes, while Sam maintained the grounds, ensuring everything was just as their grandparents would have wanted. One summer, as Ellie's teenage daughter, Mia, wandered through the attic, she discovered an old wooden chest. Intrigued, she opened it to find faded photographs, journals, and letters. Among them was a journal written by Mark himself. Mark's journal. Mia brought the journal down to the family room, where everyone was gathered. "Look what I found!" she exclaimed, holding it up. Ellie took it, running her fingers over the worn cover. "It's Grandpa Mark's handwriting," she said, her voice filled with emotion. The family gathered around as Ellie began to read aloud. The journal chronicled Mark's journey from heartbreak to healing, his love for Kathy, and the joy he found in their blended family. Each entry was a window into his thoughts, filled with wisdom, humor, and a deep sense of gratitude. One entry stood out to everyone. "This cabin is more than a home. It's a symbol of what love can overcome and what it can build. I hope, long after I'm gone, it remains a place where our family comes together. Because in the end, it's not the walls or the roof that matter. It's the people who fill it with life." Tears filled the room as Ellie closed the journal. "He built this for us," she said softly, "and we'll keep it alive for him." The family's legacy project inspired by the journal. The family decided to honor Mark and Kathy by giving back to the community. They started a foundation in their name, focused on providing safe spaces for families in need. They hosted annual charity events at the cabin, welcoming others to experience its magic and contribute to a greater cause. The foundation quickly grew, helping hundreds of families find housing, counseling, and support. It became a way for the family to extend the love and kindness Mark and Kathy had shown to others. Generations to come. As the years went on, the cabin remained a cherished retreat. Ellie's children, Mia and her brother, Alex, grew up exploring its woods, fishing in the lake, and hearing stories about their great-grandparents. Mia, now a writer, often penned essays about the cabin and its role in shaping her family's identity. On the cabin's centennial anniversary, the entire family gathered for a special celebration. Ellie stood on the porch, surrounded by her children, grandchildren, and cousins. She raised a glass, her voice steady and filled with emotion. "To Grandpa Mark and Grandma Kathy," she said, "for building not just a home, but a legacy of love and resilience. May it live on in all of us." The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices echoing through the trees. The cabin, with its weathered wood and sturdy foundation, stood as a silent witness to their enduring bond. The legacy endures years later. As Mia's own children played on the porch, she sat with her mother, Ellie, watching the sunset. "You know," Mia said, "I think Grandpa Mark and Grandma Kathy would be proud of us." Ellie smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "They would. But more than that, they'd be happy knowing this family is still full of love." The cabin, nestled among the trees, remained a testament to everything Mark and Kathy had built. A place where love, family, and hope would always thrive. The centennial celebration. The family's celebration of the cabin's centennial became an event of historic significance, not just for their family, but for the local community. By now, the Mark and Kathy Foundation had grown into a pillar of support for families in need, its impact rippling far beyond their town. The foundation's annual events at the cabin drew families, volunteers, and donors from across the state. For the centennial, Ellie's daughter Mia, now a published author, spearheaded a project to collect stories and memories of the cabin from family members spanning 4 generations. The project culminated in a book titled A Home for All Seasons, a rich tapestry of anecdotes, photographs, and reflections. At the celebration, Mia stood before the assembled family and guests to unveil the book. "This cabin has always been more than wood and nails," Mia said, her voice carrying through the crowd. "It's a living, breathing part of our family, and now its stories are preserved for future generations. This book is our way of saying thank you to Grandpa Mark and Grandma Kathy, and to everyone who made this legacy what it is today." As she held up the first printed copy, The crowd erupted into applause. Copies were distributed to everyone, and the rest were sold to raise funds for the foundation, ensuring the cabin's legacy would continue to touch lives beyond the family. A turning point for the foundation received a significant boost that year when an anonymous donor contributed a substantial amount. With the new funds, the family expanded their outreach, building a new community center dedicated to Kathy. The Kathy Collins Center for Families offered counseling services, workshops, and after-school programs, echoing her lifelong dedication to helping others. Brian, who had retired early from his illustrious culinary career, took on a leadership role in the foundation. His expertise in hospitality helped create events that drew widespread attention, further strengthening the foundation's mission. Wendy, now an established child psychologist, implemented family therapy programs, blending her professional expertise with the compassionate spirit her mother and stepfather had instilled in her. A discovery in the woods one summer, Mia's children, Mark and Clara, named after their great-grandparents, were exploring the woods near the cabin when they stumbled upon an overgrown garden. They rushed back to the cabin, excitedly pulling Mia and Ellie outside to show them their discovery. "It must have been Grandma Kathy's," Ellie said, brushing dirt off a weathered wooden marker etched with the words, "Hope grows here." The family decided to restore the garden, enlisting everyone to help. Over the following weeks, they cleared weeds, rebuilt pathways, and replanted flowers. The garden became a new family tradition, a space for reflection and quiet moments, dedicated to Kathy's memory. Passing the torch as the years passed, Ellie and Sam began to step back from their stewardship roles, handing the reins to Mia and Alex. They took their responsibility seriously, ensuring the cabin remained a sanctuary for the family and a symbol of unity. Mia's son, Mark, now a teenager, had a deep connection to the cabin. One evening, as he sat with his mother on the porch, he asked, "Do you think I'll ever be able to take care of this place like you and Grandma did?" Mia smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You'll do more than take care of it. You'll make it your own, just like each generation has before you. It's in your blood." The cabin's legacy lives on decades later. The cabin remained a vibrant hub for the family. Its walls bore the marks of countless memories. Pictures hung of weddings, graduations, and reunions, alongside the carefully preserved journal of Mark Collins. The family's reach extended far and wide, but the cabin was always a touchstone, a place where everyone returned, no matter how far life took them. On a quiet summer evening, Mia, now a grandmother herself, sat on the porch with her grandchildren. The golden hues of the sunset bathed the landscape in light, and the sounds of laughter drifted from inside. "Grandma," asked her youngest grandchild, a boy with bright, curious eyes, "why is this place so special?" Mia smiled, looking out at the familiar trees. "Because this is where love lives, and it always will." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the cabin stood tall, its weathered frame a testament to the strength of family, the power of resilience, and the enduring magic of a place called home. Generations flourished, the cabin remained the heart of the family, a symbol of unity and tradition. Each new generation added its own layer of memories to the storied home, from children's footprints in the garden Kathy once planted to carvings in the old oak tree marking every summer's growth. Mia's son, Mark, grew into a thoughtful young man who cherished the legacy of his great-grandparents. He became the de facto historian of the family, curating artifacts, photographs, and videos that documented the lives of everyone who had called the cabin home. His passion culminated in a digital archive, accessible to family members near and far, ensuring the stories of Mark and Kathy Collins and their descendants would never fade. The cabin in modern times, the cabin had stood for over 120 years by the time Mark became its steward. While time weathered its exterior, the family invested in careful restorations to preserve its character while updating it for modern living. Solar panels were discreetly added to ensure sustainability, and a workshop was built nearby to host community events in honor of the foundation's work. The cabin's legacy became intertwined with its role in the community. Every spring, the family opened it to host a retreat for families in need, a continuation of the kindness Mark and Kathy had shown years ago. Children and parents would explore the woods, share meals around the large dining table, and find solace in the cabin's welcoming atmosphere. A family reunion for the ages. One summer, the family organized the largest reunion in its history. Relatives from all corners of the world returned to the cabin, some meeting for the first time. Mia, now in her 60s, and her brother Alex took charge of organizing the event, which spanned a week and included activities like storytelling nights, talent shows, and a tree planting ceremony. On the final night, Mark Jr., now a father himself, stood to address the gathered family. This place has seen it all: love, loss, triumph, and resilience, he began. It's not just the cabin we celebrate tonight, but the legacy of the people who made it what it is. Our great-grandparents, Mark and Kathy Collins, taught us what it means to care for each other, to rebuild after hardship, and to live with purpose. He paused, holding up a wooden carving that had been found during one of the restorations. It bore the initials M+C encircled by a heart. This was Grandpa Mark's handiwork, he said, smiling. He carved it into the mantelpiece when he and Grandma Kathy first moved in. It's a reminder that love built this place, and love keeps it alive. The cabin's legacy endures as the family gathered under the stars, sharing stories and laughter. The cabin stood as a quiet witness. It had weathered storms, seen generations come and go, and stood firm through the passage of time. The garden Kathy once planted now flourished with new blooms, tended by eager little hands from the youngest generation. The family's foundation, now a thriving organization, bore the name of Mark and Kathy Collins as a tribute to their enduring legacy. Its reach extended far beyond the local community, touching lives across the country and ensuring that the kindness Mark and Kathy had embodied would live on. Looking to the future decades later, when Mark Jr.'s grandchildren roamed the cabin's halls, they would hear the stories of the people who came before them, of Mark's strength and resilience, of Kathy's warmth and optimism, and of the generations who carried their love forward. The cabin, nestled among the trees, remained steadfast. Its walls held the echoes of laughter, its floors the memories of countless footsteps, and its rooms the stories of a family bound by love. And as the sun set behind the hills, the cabin stood as it always had, a home for all who entered, a symbol of hope and a testament to the power of family, a time capsule unearthed years after the centennial celebration. A project to repair the cabin's aging foundation uncovered a hidden surprise. While clearing debris beneath the porch, Mark Jr.'s daughter, Clara, unearthed a small, rusted metal box. Intrigued, she brought it inside, where the family gathered around the dining table to examine its contents. Inside were letters, photographs, and keepsakes from the cabin's earliest days. The items were wrapped carefully, preserved against the passage of time. Among them was a handwritten note from Mark Collins, dated decades earlier to whoever finds this cabin is not just a home. It's a promise that no matter how difficult life may become, there is always a place for love, laughter, and family. If you are reading this, know that you are part of something greater, a legacy of resilience, hope, and kindness. Take care of this place and each other. That's all I could ever hope for. The family sat in silence, absorbing the words that seemed to echo across generations. Clara, her voice trembling, said, "Grandpa Mark always knew how to make us feel connected, didn't he?" Mia smiled through her tears. He always had a way of looking ahead, of knowing what would matter most. The discovery of the time capsule became another cherished piece of the cabin's history, a reminder of the wisdom and foresight that Mark and Kathy had passed down. A new steward as Clara and her cousins grew older, they took an increasingly active role in preserving the cabin and its traditions. Clara, inspired by her great-grandfather's note, decided to take on the role of family historian. She meticulously digitized the time capsule's contents, ensuring future generations could access the stories and memories of their ancestors. Her brother, Alex, became the steward of the physical property. A skilled carpenter, he lovingly repaired the cabin's aging beams and restored its original charm. Under his care, the cabin retained its rustic beauty while evolving to meet the needs of a growing family. The cabin as a community beacon by this time, the Mark and Kathy Collins Foundation had grown into a nationally recognized nonprofit. The cabin, once a humble retreat, became a symbol of hope for families facing hardship. Each summer, the foundation hosted retreats for single parents and their children, offering them the same kind of refuge and renewal that Mark and Kathy had once offered to Kathy's own family. On the cabin's 150th anniversary, the foundation celebrated its milestone with a special event. Families who had benefited from the retreats shared their stories, describing how their lives had been changed. One mother tearfully recounted how the retreats had helped her rebuild her life after losing her husband, much like Kathy had decades earlier. "Because of this place," she said, "my kids have hope again. I have hope again. This cabin isn't just a home, it's a lifeline." A final reflection as the years turned into decades. The cabin became a timeless testament to the power of love, resilience, and family. Its walls continued to hold the stories of generations, each one adding to the rich tapestry of its history. Clara, now in her 70s, sat on the porch one summer evening, watching her grandchildren play in the yard. The sunset bathed the cabin in a warm, golden glow, and the air was filled with laughter and the distant hum of cicadas. Her grandson, a curious 10-year-old named Henry, climbed onto the porch swing beside her. "Grandma Clara," he asked, "do you think great-great-grandpa Mark and Grandma Kathy would like how we take care of the cabin?" Clara smiled, her heart full. "I think they'd love it, Henry. They'd love how we've kept their promise alive." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the cabin stood as it always had, quiet and steadfast, its walls alive with the memories of a family bound by love. The promise Mark and Kathy had made all those years ago was fulfilled every day, in every laugh, every story, and every act of kindness. And so, the legacy of the cabin, and the family it nurtured, endured stronger than ever, a beacon for generations yet to come. The cabin in the modern era. As the years marched on, the world around the cabin changed. The forest that once surrounded it became part of a protected conservation area, ensuring the land would remain untouched for future generations. The nearby lake, where generations had learned to swim and fish, became a regional landmark, attracting visitors who marveled at its serene beauty. Despite these changes, the cabin retained its timeless charm. Mark and Kathy's descendants continued to gather there, each generation adding their own layer of history. The foundation expanded its reach, launching initiatives in urban centers and rural areas alike. But the cabin remained its symbolic heart. A global impact in the 21st century, the Mark and Kathy Collins Foundation partnered with international organizations to address global issues like housing insecurity and family welfare. Under Clara's guidance, the foundation launched virtual retreats, bringing the spirit of the cabin to families worldwide. To mark the cabin's 175th anniversary, the family organized a global storytelling project. Families from around the world shared their own tales of resilience and love, inspired by the Collins legacy. These stories were compiled into an anthology, titled Stories of Home Inspired by the Cabin, which became a bestseller and further cemented the cabin's place in history. The cabin as a cultural icon. As the cabin's legacy grew, it began to attract historians, writers, and artists who sought to capture its magic. Documentaries were made about its history, and the story of Mark and Kathy became a source of inspiration for countless people. One filmmaker, after completing a documentary about the cabin, summed it up perfectly: "This isn't just a story about a family. It's a story about what it means to be human, to love, to forgive, to build, and to endure." A new time capsule on the cabin's 200th anniversary, the family gathered once more, now spanning 7 generations. They decided to create a new time capsule to honor the legacy of Mark and Kathy while leaving their own mark for future generations. The capsule included a copy of Mark's original journal, family photos spanning 2 centuries, letters from current family members, reflecting on what the cabin meant to them, a video compilation of family gatherings, capturing the laughter and love that had filled the cabin over the years. Before sealing the capsule, Henry, now the family historian, added a final note to those who opened this: "This cabin has stood the test of time, not because of its walls or roof, but because of the love it has sheltered. We hope you continue to fill it with laughter, kindness, and the stories that make us human. This is our gift to you, a reminder that even in a changing world, some things are eternal." The cabin's eternal spirit long after the last of Mark and Kathy's direct descendants passed on. The cabin continued to thrive, cared for by those who felt its magic. It became a symbol of resilience, a place where the lessons of the past shaped the future. Visitors often remarked on the warmth they felt upon entering the cabin, as if the love of generations lingered in the air. It was more than a structure. It was a living testament to the power of family and the enduring strength of hope. And so, the cabin stood, nestled among the trees, its walls alive with the echoes of laughter and love, a beacon of what it means to care, to endure, and to create something that lasts forever. A sanctuary for the future. As the cabin entered its third century, it became more than a family home. It evolved into a beacon of hope for a world in flux. The Mark and Kathy Collins Foundation extended its reach globally, addressing not just housing and family welfare but environmental sustainability and community resilience. The cabin became a symbol of these efforts, embodying the values of stewardship, unity, and care. A technological bridge. One of the youngest descendants, Emma Rose, was a tech prodigy who envisioned ways to blend the cabin's traditions with the innovations of the modern world. Inspired by her great-great-great-grandfather's journal and her family's stories, she developed a virtual experience of the cabin. Using augmented reality, people from anywhere in the world could visit the cabin, exploring its rooms, hearing recorded stories from family members, and even experiencing the view from its iconic porch. The project, The Cabin Chronicles, became a global sensation. Families, educators, and organizations used it to teach lessons about love, resilience, and the importance of home. Emma Rose's project ensured that even those who couldn't physically visit the cabin could feel its magic. A gathering of generations. To mark the cabin's 225th anniversary, the family organized a multi-day celebration that brought together hundreds of descendants from across the globe. The event was a mix of old traditions and new innovations. While the children fished at the lake and explored the woods, the adults participated in workshops and storytelling circles. On the final night, the family gathered around a massive fire pit. A large screen displayed images from the family's history, beginning with Mark and Kathy and spanning the centuries. Speeches were given, but it was the youngest family member, 6-year-old Leo, who stole the show when he stood up and said, "This cabin is love. That's why we all come back." The simple truth of his words brought tears to everyone's eyes. Protecting the cabin in an era of environmental challenges, the family made a bold decision. They donated the land surrounding the cabin to a conservation trust. The cabin itself, while still maintained by the family, was designated a historic site, ensuring its preservation for future generations. The trust worked with the family to protect the surrounding forest, lake, and wildlife, creating a sanctuary for both people and nature. The cabin's role in a changing world. As the decades rolled on, the cabin became a symbol of hope in an increasingly turbulent world. Writers and filmmakers continued to draw inspiration from its history, while families who visited the site or experienced it virtually found renewed faith in the power of connection and resilience. The family, now spanning continents, continued to gather at the cabin for reunions. The structure, lovingly restored and modernized as needed, stood as a testament to what people could create when they chose love over division, care over neglect, and resilience over despair. The cabin's eternal promise. Centuries after Mark and Kathy first breathed life into the cabin's walls, its spirit endured. The cabin wasn't just a place, it was an idea. It was a promise that even in the face of hardship, people could find solace, strength, and purpose. It was a reminder that love, when nurtured, could create something timeless. As the sun set behind the hills, casting its golden light over the cabin, it stood as it always had, steadfast, warm, and filled with the echoes of countless lives lived fully and well. The cabin's bicentennial legacy. By the time the cabin's 250th anniversary approached, it had become a universally recognized symbol of perseverance and love. The family organized the grandest celebration yet, a global gathering that welcomed not just Collins descendants but also members of the community and beneficiaries of the Mark and Kathy Collins Foundation. The event was designed to honor not just the past but the future of what the cabin represented. A global celebration. The event spanned an entire week, with activities celebrating the family's traditions and the cabin's role in inspiring global change. The schedule included story circles. Each generation shared memories of how the cabin had shaped their lives. From tales of first kisses on the porch to stories of healing from hardships, the circles were filled with laughter, tears, and gratitude. Tree planting ceremony. To honor Kathy's original garden, a new grove of trees was planted around the property, symbolizing growth, renewal, and resilience. Virtual reality exhibit. Emma Rose's The Cabin Chronicles was upgraded to include holographic projections of Mark and Kathy, allowing visitors to hear their voices, recreated using archival letters and journals. It was a surreal and emotional experience for all who participated. Cultural exchange program. Families from around the world, who had been touched by the Foundation's work, brought pieces of their own traditions to share: music, food, and stories, creating a tapestry of global connection. A new time capsule. As the final day of the bicentennial approached, the family gathered to create another time capsule. This time, it included contributions not just from the Collins family but from those whose lives had been changed by the foundation. Items placed inside included messages of gratitude from families helped by the foundation, a USB drive containing the full archive of the Cabin Chronicles project, seeds from Kathy's garden, packed carefully for future planting, a holographic video message from the youngest generation, expressing their hopes for the cabin's next 250 years. As the capsule was sealed, 12-year-old Sophia Collins, a direct descendant of Mark, stepped forward with her contribution. A small notebook where she had written, "To the future, this cabin is more than wood. It's a promise. Please keep it safe." An unprecedented legacy in the years following the bicentennial, the cabin became a permanent fixture in cultural and historical education. It was added to UNESCO's list of World Heritage Sites, recognized for its role in fostering family, community, and global solidarity. Schools used the story of the cabin to teach students about resilience, environmental stewardship, and the power of kindness. Documentaries, novels, and films continued to celebrate its history, ensuring its lessons reached audiences of all ages. The Mark and Kathy Collins Foundation expanded its scope to address challenges like climate change and mental health, always guided by the principles of love and care that the cabin represented. The family's role as descendants continued to steward the cabin. They passed down not just its physical upkeep but its emotional and spiritual significance. Family members served as board members of the foundation, volunteers in their communities, and ambassadors for the cabin's mission. Each generation added its voice to the ongoing story, ensuring it remained vibrant and relevant. The cabin's timeless spirit. Centuries after Mark and Kathy first imagined the cabin as a place of refuge and renewal, it stood as a beacon of hope. Visitors, whether physically present or experiencing it virtually, felt its enduring warmth. The spirit of love and resilience that built the cabin continued to inspire, reminding everyone who encountered it that no matter the challenges of the world, connection and compassion could create something everlasting. The cabin's final chapter. Generations came and went, but the cabin remained steadfast. Its wooden walls, marked by time and love, bore witness to centuries of laughter, tears, and growth. By the time the cabin reached its 300th year, it had transcended its role as a simple family home, becoming a timeless monument to resilience and love. A gathering to remember, the family decided to mark the cabin's 300th anniversary with one final grand celebration. By now, the Collins family tree had spread across the globe, encompassing thousands of descendants. Despite the vast distances and busy lives, representatives from nearly every branch of the family gathered to honor the legacy. The event was both a celebration and a moment of reflection. Clara's descendants, now the family historians, shared a comprehensive history of the cabin and its significance. A holographic projection of Mark and Kathy Collins, created using advanced technology, welcomed the crowd with a recorded message. This cabin was built to endure, not just in structure but in spirit. It's a place for love, family, and hope. And while the world may change, the values it represents will never fade. Thank you for keeping this promise alive. Passing the torch. After the celebration, the family made a collective decision. As much as they cherished the cabin, they knew it couldn't stand forever. They chose to preserve its legacy in a new way, by carefully dismantling the structure and using its materials to create something enduring. Each beam and plank was cataloged and repurposed. The most significant pieces were incorporated into a new community center, built on the same land, designed to serve as a hub for the Mark and Kathy Collins Foundation. The center was named the Cabin Legacy Center, and its mission was clear: to continue fostering resilience, connection, and hope for future generations. The final farewell. On a bright summer morning, the family gathered one last time on the cabin's grounds. The youngest and oldest members of the Collins family stood side by side, holding hands as they watched the cabin's final walls come down. Tears flowed freely, but they were tears of gratitude, not sorrow. The cabin had done its work, standing strong for 3 centuries and creating a legacy that would endure far beyond its physical form. As the last beam was carried to its new home in the community center, a sense of peace settled over the gathered family. The cabin's spirit would live on, not in its walls, but in the lives it had touched. A legacy eternal. Decades later, the Cabin Legacy Center stood as a thriving hub of activity. Families from around the world visited to learn about its history and to find inspiration in its message. The land where the cabin once stood became a memorial garden, its centerpiece a sculpture crafted from the original wood, depicting an open door, a symbol of welcome, love, and possibility. The Collins descendants continued to steward the foundation, their connection to the cabin's story as strong as ever. And though the cabin itself no longer stood, its promise endured in the hearts of all who knew its story. Epilogue. One quiet evening, a young boy wandered the memorial garden, his fingers tracing the wood of the open-door sculpture. He turned to his mother, a Collins descendant, and asked, "Is it true a family built this whole thing?" She smiled, her eyes filled with pride. "Yes, and not just a family, our family. They believed in love, in hope, and in helping others. And they created something so strong, it lasted for centuries." The boy tilted his head, thoughtful. "Do you think we can make something like that?" His mother knelt beside him, her voice steady. "We already are." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, the garden glowed with the warmth of the cabin's legacy, a timeless testament to the power of love, resilience, and the enduring strength of family. Thanks for watching. What would you have done? Comment below and subscribe for more stories.